Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can make one of these Viking chairs. They're really easy to make. The material costs around $20 and I make it so that you can store it all folded up together. I try to make these videos straightforward and easy to follow, so thank you guys for watching and enjoy the tutorial. To make this Viking chair, all you need is one piece of lumber, 2 by 12 by 6 feet long. So here's the piece of wood that I'm going to be using. The problem is, generally most hardware stores don't sell any lumber less than 8 feet. So you can buy an 8-footer, but you'll have 2 feet of waste, or you can buy a 12-foot 2 by 12, cut it in half at 6 foot, and make 2 chairs. I'll show you the measurements on this just so that you can confirm. Okay, so as you can see, 6 foot long, and this is a 2 by 12, which means it's 11 1/4 inches wide, and it is 1 1/2 inches thick. Now the tools to build this are very minimal. You're going to need a tape measure. I recommend having a square to help draw some of your lines. You're going to need a drill with about a 1/2 inch drill bit, and then you need a jigsaw. If you want to make some of the other cuts easier, you can use a circular saw. If you don't have a circular saw, you can make all the cuts using a jigsaw. It's just going to be a little bit slower making cuts with a jigsaw. The first thing that we want to do is take our 6 foot 2 by 12 and cut it in half. So we want 2 pieces that are 3 foot long each. So I'm going to get my tape measure and I am going to mark 3 foot on here. And then I will use my square to transfer that line straight across so that I can cut it. So as you can see, our tape is hooked on the end and we are marked here at 3 foot. And we're going to cut straight across. Like I mentioned, you can make all the cuts with a jigsaw, but I'm going to use a circular saw as it's a lot quicker when making long cuts like this. Just like that, we have 2 3-footers. As you can see, I've cut the 2 boards. They are identical and they are each 3 foot long. You may have noticed that this chair is made up of only 2 pieces of wood that fit into each other. So we are going to start by cutting this piece of wood, and then once we finish this one, we will cut this piece out. We're going to start by making all the measurements for this piece. So I've got the wider end facing down, and I am going to remove our first piece of wood. I'm going to orient it so it's facing the exact same way. I'm going to tell you all the measurements, I'm going to draw my lines, and then I'll bring you in at the end and show you everything. So the first thing that we want to do is hook our tape on the bottom, measure up 11 inches. We are going to do that on both sides. And take something that we can use as a straight edge. We're going to put it on both of those marks, and then we are going to draw our line across, just like that. The next thing that we're going to do is make these marks so that we can cut that out. So this is 1 3/4 inch from the edge. So we're going to hook our tape on, and we're going to make a mark at 1 3/4. We're going to do this at the top and at the bottom. And then we'll take our straight edge once again, put them on those marks, and connect that line.
Now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I also have plans that I've drawn up for each of these measurements. I'm going to post these and you can pause the video and reference them as well.
Let me show you exactly what I did here. So as you can see, our tape is hooked on. we have a line at 11 inches that goes straight across, and then these two lines back here are 1 3/4 inch, 1 3/4 inch, and they go straight down to the bottom on each side. So now what we want to do is cut this out. So I'm going to place some X's on here just so that I know that we can cut those. Now this next part is optional. As you can see, I've got some angles cut on here. You don't have to cut the angles. I do recommend to cut them if you're able to, because it'll make sitting on the chair more comfortable. So to do those, we're going to hook our tape on the edge. We're going to mark 3 inches, 3 inch, 3 inch, and then we're going to come down and we are going to mark 2 inches. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to connect those lines. So I'm going to take my square, put the straight edge so that it's sitting on both of the marks we made, draw a line, and I will place an X on there so that we remember to cut that out. Do the same here. Place an X there as well. Just so that you can see this. We made our first mark at 3 inches from the edge, and then we came down and made our next mark at 2 inches, and then I just drew my line straight across on both sides there.
Now I'm going to cut this board where we made all those marks. So I'm using a circular saw. Again, you can use a jigsaw, it's just slower going. And then as you can see, I had to use my jigsaw just to finish up the cut here.
This piece of wood, we want to hold on to it. We're going to use this later on, so take it and put it somewhere that we can grab later. Here's a closer up. As you can see, I cut that piece out there all along the side. Now I'm going to flip the board over and do the same for there.
This is the exact same as the last piece. I'm just following the line with my circular saw, making the cut. And remember to keep this piece as we'll be using it later on.
I've got both sides cut off, so now I'm going to cut these front 2 pieces. Like that, we have the seat portion of the chair done. So you can see we cut these angles off here. Like I said, you can skip these. It's not necessary to the chair. It's just more for comfort. And then we cut the 2 side pieces off. And like I mentioned, keep these 2 pieces as we will be able to use them later on the chair. Okay, so now we are going to cut this piece out here. We're going to grab our second 3-foot 2x12, and we want to make a couple measurements on here. So I'll lay the measurements out and then I'll show you them afterwards so that you can copy them specifically. The first mark we want to make is 11 inches up from the bottom. And then we're going to go to 12.5 inches, and we're going to go a 1/16 more than 12.5. I'll show you what that is closer up. So again, on this side, 11 inches, and then go to 12.5, add 1 extra 1/16. So we're just a little bit bigger than 12.5. We will take our straight edge, draw those lines straight across, just like that. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to measure in 1 3/4 inch from the side. So we're going to hook our tape on the side, 1 3/4 inch, 1 3/4 inch, and then we will do the exact same thing here, 1 3/4, 1 3/4, and we will grab our square and connect those lines together. So I'll show you guys exactly what I have drawn here. So here's the bottom of the board that we measured off of. As you can see, our first line here is at 11 inch. Our second line is, there's 12 and a half. I went one small tick past 12 and a half. So our line is 11, 12 and a half with a little tick. And then on the side, we measured from the edge 1 3/4 inch, 1 3/4 inch. And then I placed X's here because this is what we want to cut out. So again, we're making a slot in this board. The reason I went just over 12 and a half is because our lumber is 1.5 inches thick. So I made it just a little bit bigger than it is thick so that our piece of wood can slide in there. Just like on the last board, we've got angles cut on the top here. So I'm gonna lay out the angles to cut those out. Again, this is optional. It doesn't affect the structure of the chair. You don't need to do this, but I'm gonna take our board, flip it around, and just like on the previous board we did, we're gonna measure from the side 3 inch. Do that to both. And then we're gonna come down 2 inches. And we are gonna connect those marks with a straight edge. And place an X because we want to cut those out. Again, just so you can see this, we've measured across 3 inches. We made our mark, and then we measured down 2 inches, made our mark, connected the lines, and put an X. So we've done that for both of those, which we can cut out as well. I just cut those angles off. Those cuts are done. Let's flip the board around. Again, we're gonna clamp this to our workbench so that it doesn't move. And we want to now cut out our slot. So to do this, we need our drill and jigsaw. We need to use a drill bit that's bigger than the width of the jigsaw blade because we're going to drill a hole in each corner, and that will allow us to put our jigsaw in to start those cuts. So I'm going to drill some of these holes and I'll show you what it looks like once they're done. So as you can see, our jigsaw blade can now fit into that hole so we can make this cut.
Now using the jigsaw, I'm just going to follow my lines, go across, and cut this piece out. When using a jigsaw, go nice and slow and make sure you have a sharp blade.
Okay, we just got the middle cut out, so this is garbage. Now that we've got this piece cut out, we want to test and make sure the two pieces fit together. So as you see, this should fit in here. Mine fits in perfectly. If yours doesn't quite fit, you may have to try and shave that out a little bit bigger with your jigsaw. But if you remember, we made that opening a 1/16 inch bigger than we needed, just so that there'd be some extra play. So these fit together nicely.
The next thing that I like to do is grab some sandpaper and sand over top all the edges that we cut and get rid of that sharp edge, round it over a little bit. You could use a router if you have one, but most people have sandpaper and this is quick and easy to do.
Here's a little trick. As you can see, we have this pencil line on here. If you don't have an eraser, the rubber on a tape measure works just like an eraser, and it will basically get rid of that excess pencil so that you can't see it. So I'll just go around, use this to get rid of all that pencil mark.
Now, as you can see, the chair is all done and ready to be used. I'm going to show you another thing that you can add onto the back side of the chair to help store the two pieces together. This is quick and easy to do and really uses no extra material.
As you can see, we've got the two pieces laying on top of each other. Make sure that they're flush here as well as flush along the sides, and then take a pencil and make a mark right where the two pieces sit on top of each other. And you can also mark out just the side. And now we can take the pieces off of each other. So we have the back of our board and we have our two marks right there. If you remember, we should still have two scrap pieces of wood that we had from cutting off this board. So we're going to take the two scrap pieces and we are going to measure and mark on these 16 inches. Again, we've got our hook measure taped on the end and we've got our mark at 16 inches. Now we can go ahead and cut both of these pieces. So we've got our two pieces cut at 16 inches. Now, this is where you're going to need one extra piece of material. I've got a scrap piece of pine here, 3/4 inch thick, 1.5 inch wide. You can almost use anything for this, but we're going to take and cut two pieces here. So you want to measure your board and just confirm the width of the board. My board is 11.25 inch. So I'm going to mark onto this 11.25 inch, and I'm going to do that on both ends. Again, so that there's no confusion, we want to measure our board, confirm the width, which here is 11.25 inch, and then we're going to go up to our scrap material and we are going to measure the same width onto the board, and we are going to cut two pieces. We've got those two pieces cut. So now we're going to work on screwing this together. These pieces here that are 16 inches long, we want to orient them so that the side that is 1.75 inches faces up. I'll show you what that looks like. These pieces, one side is going to be 1.5 inch wide, the other side is going to be 1.75 inch wide. The side that's 1.75 inch, we want to face up, just like that. Now we're going to take the boards we cut and we're going to screw them together. So we're going to line up all the edges, making sure that they're flush. And we're going to place a screw in here. So I'm using 1.5 inch wood screws.
And I'm putting one screw into each joint. Again, remember to pre-drill and make sure that everything is flush when screwing it together.
Just like that, we've got this screwed together. As you can see, we're flush on each edge and we're flush at the top and bottom. So we're going to take this and we're going to sit it on those marks that we drew onto the board, and then we can screw this into place. 2.5 inch wood screws.
I'm putting two screws onto each side to hold this together.
Grab our board and it stores in there just like that. Here's a closer up look. So we just screwed the scrap piece to the side piece, 1.75 inch facing up, and we just made a little box on there. Remember, we made these measurements, which is 11 inches down, and then we can just take this top board and it fits right in there.
Now that the chair is all done, you can choose to stain, paint, or leave it natural. I'm putting a light stain on this just to give it a little bit more of a finish. And just like that, the chairs are done. You're good to go. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them below in the comment section, and I'll do my best to respond to them. Thanks again, and take care.